Okay, so I wanted to go ahead and give you a little bit of feedback on your golf cart. It'll be relatively quick. Um, so more than anything, just kind of helping you work on getting your models together, maybe showing you a couple of tweaks on or workflow issues. So it's probably a good idea to watch everybody's video, not just your own. Wow. So this is a good one to start with. Overall, this is looking really good. I'm not sure if you're wanting to smooth it, but if we use the smooth option, what's happening? Okay, yeah. So we're getting a pretty decent result. This may not even be what you're wanting, but it may be. Um, and if so, well, the first thing I would note is you have a really long history here, so I would go ahead and delete history, and that's just going to speed everything up a little bit. Let's do 3. So that's pretty neat, depending on which version you're going for. Uh, but even if you stick it or leave it in this kind of blocky version, I think it's actually looking really good. Looking for some stuff to make some notes on. I guess that's not really. I guess this is a very small one. This is actually looking really good. You don't really need this diagonal edge here. In fact, it looks like you kind of have some weirdness going on under here. But again, this is yeah, you get some weirdness going on right in there. To maybe clean up a little bit. Um, some of that's underneath, so it doesn't really matter too much. The other thing, I guess, is if we talk in terms of efficiency, I think that there's you know, you need all of these edge loops up here, but you don't always need them here. And so, depending on what you're planning on taking this to, there's ways we could sort of truncate this and still keep it in quads, but we could also just take this entirely to triangles in these areas that it doesn't really matter about having that much detail in it. We get our target weld tool under our modeling toolkit and just go through here and just sort of weld all of these. That's not what I wanted. I'm going to stick to verts here. Just target weld all these together. Now, this is kind of ugly topology because we have all of this in tries now, and that's not necessarily bad. But if we're trying to reduce poly count, that's something we could do, and you can see that we can simplify a lot of this back here. Now, that doesn't mean that that's the only way to get rid of that. You don't have to convert it all to tries, because what you could do if you wanted to is it's kind of hard to explain until we do it, but we could reroute this to make. Let me see if I can just show you how to do this. So I'll use the multi-cut tool. Let's say I want to click there, click here. Okay, so we have a triangle, right? And then I may be doing this wrong. Okay, so that seems a little weird that I did that, but now what we have is this is in quads, right? And so that means this one isn't needed anymore. And so now I can use my target weld, just merge those together, and we've still kept everything in quads, you see, but we've just reduced the need for as many edge loops going through the rest of your model. So this, this is kind of allowing you to keep your edge flow, but then we've just reduced 2 edges that have to go all the way around your model. And so we could do that, a few other places to eventually truncate this down to fewer numbers of edges that have to go all the way through the model. And so now we can target weld all these together, and we've still managed to keep it in quads, right? But we've just reduced two edges that go all the way around it. So there's a lot of little tricks that we can do to start reducing the number of edges that you have to have in here, and so although it's not really hurting anything here, sometimes it makes it hard to stay consistent. So let's say you just wanted to move this whole edge forward, you have a lot of edges to grab there. So since nothing is really changing across this surface, having that many edges is a little inefficient, but it's definitely not bad. I'm actually just kind of looking for things to give you feedback on now. So yeah, all this is looking pretty good. Probably could, yeah, I'm not gonna give you too much of a hassle on any of that. There's probably a way that you could merge this into one object if you wanted it to be one object, but overall this is just looking really good, and so there's just not a lot of feedback I would give you on this. I think there's some things you could do to start adding a little bit more style to it. So like this feels a little stiff and like boxy, and so does the steering wheel, whereas some of this other stuff feels like it's really got a lot more attention given to the form and the shape. So I think that you could play around with that a little bit to try to get a slightly more a slightly less just geometric shape out of this. And it may be something as much as just putting an edge loop in there and sort of scaling that in a little bit to get a quick taper before it comes back out. And so, like, that's just, you see a couple areas that just feel like a little bit more simple and geometric, have a little less attention to them than some of the others. Some of that may be polished up in the texturing, and you may add some attention there, but then you get like these really nice little pieces under here that kind of add some neat elements to it. So I'm gonna go ahead and close this one down. Overall, that's looking really good. Annie. I shouldn't have closed it all the way down. Okay. Awesome. So you've got a good start on here. I think, again, I know you've kind of ran into similar issues that you need to address, meaning, I'm sorry, that's not correct. I phrased that wrong. You've ran into sort of a series of issues that you need to address, and usually just pressing 3 here has sort of helped you sort of troubleshoot some of those. So one of the ones we'd already noticed is this face here that has a ton of edges around it. And so I said that to a lot of people, and I just want to make sure that everybody understands what I'm saying. If we look at this, face, right, it has 1, 2, 3, 4 sides that make up that face, right? But this face has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right? So it's 9 faces that make that up. And so Maya doesn't necessarily know what to do with that. And so just for cleanliness reasons, you need to clean that up. And we can clean that up pretty quickly with something like the multi-cut tool. Click there, click there. We'll just create another quad there. And so the next issue is like, how do you feel about triangles? Triangles are at least better than this like 8-sided face. So one of the things we could do is maybe that, and let's do this with each of them. And even though that's not as clean as keeping it in quads, you're going to get much better distortion when we do this. Now this is something that's a no-no too, and that we have everything going to one edge. So what a lot of modelers do is they just find, you don't really want 5 edges going all into one point, or more than 5 edges going all into one point. So we could do that. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, no, that's too many 2. So I don't know. That's called a pole. Like you got too many polarities going on there, basically. So that would be something just to kind of play around with and see how you can clean that up. You got a couple other areas where that's going on, and then sort of the elephant in the room is that this thing is floating. And I think you could probably even do a little bit more detail going on in the wheels here, and the seats. Like you got some nice seats in the reference. This feels very very simple and kind of last minute to get something in there. So I just think it needs a little bit more attention just to kind of polish it up and get something that's feeling more finished, although the parts that you have finished are actually looking pretty good. Like you're getting some pretty neat shapes in here, and stuff like that. Now we addressed some of this, I think, in class, and like it doesn't seem like that should be making that shape. And so the reason it is probably because of your history on the model. And if you look at your history, like these are all the things you've done to create it. And so if we did modify, sorry, edit, delete by type, history, and see if that fixes it. Sometimes it will, sometimes it doesn't. So the other thing that this may be is just some faces that are just, they've been created in such a way that they just kind of have a weird result. And so, for instance, this looks like one edge, but it may actually be a face that has 0 area on it, right? I know that doesn't really make sense. But imagine, if we have an edge here, an edge here, and an edge here, right? This area in here is a face, and this area is here is a face. But imagine if all of these were merged, all of these edges were merged together, but somehow those faces didn't get deleted. Basically, this was merged into here, this was merged into here, and we just have one edge now, right? But in that edge is hidden these 2 faces that have no area on them. That sounds crazy, but sometimes just the way Maya ends up making things, it gets weird geometry like that. And I believe that's called a lamina face. But let's look at how we can clean some of that up. So if you're getting some weirdness going on in your model, go to Mesh, Clean Up. Okay. And so what this is going to do is it's going to either point out or delete and fix issues that we have that are wrong with this geometry. So lamina faces is one. Non-manifold geometry is one. And then I usually do edges with 0 length and faces with 0 geometry area. And then if I hit clean up, if it turns blue, that means it did something. Okay? If it doesn't turn anything, then that means it probably didn't do anything. If we hit 3, we see that it did do something. It cleaned up some of those faces. Still got an issue there, but that's because of this 6-sided face right here. And so that's something that you could easily fix. So I think the biggest issue is just finish it. Like it's not completely finished yet, and that will be a slight deduction on the grade. No, it won't be a slight. It will be a deduction on the grade if especially if it makes it all the way to the end with this. So everybody's working on the revisions right now, though. That's the biggest thing to revise, is just make sure you have the project done. So BJ, I'm guessing we're going to go with 9. It's also 30 minutes newer, so. Okay. Sorry, I know this takes a minute or 2 to open, but it's a little easier than setting the project and everything. Oh, nice. Well, let's see what this looks like if you smooth it. I'm not sure this is something you're wanting to smooth or if you're wanting to go for there we go. So I just got everything selected, hit 3 to non-manifold geometry, P shape 1. Okay, so that one lets you do it. And it's looking alright. You're getting some weirdness going on here. And so I sometimes do this just to see like areas of the mesh that may not be working right. And so if you look at this face here, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I guess 7 sides. So 1, 2, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I guess 6 sides. And so that's usually something that you can usually find a relatively easy way of fixing that. The easiest one that I would see right off the top of my head would be just to do a cut from there to there. And so let's see if we get a slightly better, not perfect. Looks like there's also another face kind of hiding in here. So there's some weird geometry issues you got going on in here. And so that's just, you're going to have some stuff to kind of iron out there when it comes to the details of the model. I want to figure out which one that was that gave us that error. Object. Let's do it again. 3. It is P cube shape 1. So let's figure out which one P cube shape 1 is. P cube 1. Oh, it's this guy. So this is the non-manifold geometry, and I guess that's why it's giving you those issues. And also, if we look at our channel box, you'll see that you still just have a lot of history left on that. So some of that may be modify, or let's see, edit, delete by type history. 3, still getting it. And so sometimes that's what we do. Like, I wonder if what that's giving us is something from here. But there's ways we can run a fix on that and see what we get. So let's hit 3. Go mesh, clean up. Again, all the same things I checked previously. Edges with 0 length, faces with 0 geometry area, non-manifold geometry, and lamina faces. And if I hit clean up, well, it did something. I don't know what it was, but it did something. And so now, still getting that. Ooh, I think I know what it might be. I think it may be this. Yeah, this seems like it's got some weirdness going on in here, and so it may just be that if you have this face, if I delete that, yeah. So did you kind of see what was happening there? If I hit Control Z, somehow we have a face that is connecting this back edge with this front edge, and it's causing it to do this like crazy pinching through there, right? And so if I delete that face, everything kind of goes to where it needs to be. And so you have that going on in some places. I definitely think that this one needs some cleanup just to be, topology-wise a little bit more refined. But overall, you're getting a great form, and that's the biggest thing. I think there's a couple of things that will help you on this. Like, you get these really sharp angles. And so stuff like that usually starts causing you issues in the way that this wants to render. And like, it gets more problematic when you start getting stuff like this, and it's like this really sharp angle. So you really do want to try to kind of keep it in a square as much as you can. Okay, so if I go to the side, like, ideally I think I would want to pull these down here, even if that meant I had to add another edge loop in here to get that tucked in area. And so go to Edge Tool, insert edge loop, just because we're getting a little bit of a better edge flow that way, right? And then if we go to vertices, we can kind of sculpt that a little bit better. Now I didn't get it on the other side, but you get the idea of what's happening there. And that's just going to give us a little bit of a better flow of our edges through here, right? I consider maybe putting a few more edge loops in here. Depends on whether you're planning on smoothing it or not. And I go ahead and put one in here too, just to kind of ease the extreme angles on here that you have to stretch this one so far in comparison to this. And so it's going to end up being a little bit harder to texture too. So just kind of keeping the way your edges flow around your object a little bit cleaner is always just going to result in an easier model to work with. So, overall though, this one's looking really good. You got some really nice forms in here. Again, I don't know if you're wanting to smooth it or not, but when you do, we're getting some pretty good stuff. on here. I think there's a couple of little things you need to iron out and get some stuff working on. Like this probably doesn't need to be smoothed. But you know, there's some things to be thinking about on whether you want it to be smoothed or not. Okay. And so, Brandon. Okay. Nice. Yeah, this is looking good. And I think you're getting fewer topology errors than, you know, the only issue I'm really seeing is whatever's going on here. And so if we click on that, it kind of looks like what you have happening here is this edge is like extruded up to it, and there are all these faces in between that are kind of making up the. So if I grab this face and kind of pull it up, it's almost like there's a little pocket under there. See that? And so I don't know if that's what you wanted to do, but I think it's probably a bad idea to have it working that way. And so if we just go inside the model, sometimes that's the best way to see it. You'll see some reasons or some ways that we could, you know, work this out, which is, you know, that would probably just be, you know, clear all the way through it, right? And we can start. It's kind of hard to tell until you're in here doing it yourself to the parts that are missing. Okay. And so we kind of fix those. Go ahead and delete these. All right. I'm going to delete them over here on this side too. And we're getting closer to a mesh that's going to be a little easier for us to edit. We got some invisible face right here. It's a very small face. Okay, and by doing that, I've really, oh, there's still some more going on in there too, isn't there? These faces here. So this may be one of those things where you have to go in here and delete even more. So there's, that's annoying. So we can clean all that out, and you'll start to see that, like, when we're smoothing it now, we're getting less of that, but now we have to weld all of this together to make it work. And so there's just some of that going on that just feels a little weird and messy, and it's just going to be a little work to fix that. So like we can fix that piece that way. And maybe get inside here and see what's going on. Yeah, see, it's hard to find all of the details that may or may not be messed up and fix them. So I think this is one. I don't know, but after we get them all cleared out of there, then we can start welding all of this stuff back together. And so it seems like a long way to go through that. And in all honesty, what you may be looking at, be like, really, I got to do all that? Maybe I'll just delete this and re-extrude that or re-weld that together in a way that makes more sense. And that may even be an easier option because that's not a very complicated piece. But just I'm kind of wanting to point out what the issues are. I think again the big elephant in the room is that it's not really completely finished, and so definitely want to go back and finish up the top and give it a steering wheel, makes it easier to drive. All those little things that you just kind of want to go in and just put the finishing touches on everything. And let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Cat. Okay. So I'll take it a second to finish this up. Okay, there we go. So yeah, this is looking pretty good. Got some neat elements in here. The mesh, for the most part, is looking pretty clean. When we smooth it, it gets a little bit more Flintstone-y, but I think you've made it up out of quite a few like simpler pieces, but you've added some detail in here where you need it. So I'll say that even if you don't smooth it, I think that it's probably worth adding just a little bit of something here just because of how far we stretch that angle. So like that turns it such a sharp angle, and that seems like it's kind of a hard one to explain why that's a intuitive thing that I don't like doing. It's that it's because it's starting to approach this, right? And as we get there, it's like that's just a lot of angle change in that one edge, right? Like it's that we go. It's not a. Let's go to the right view so I can. Oh. So if we're looking at this angle here that where this piece changes, right? Right now, like it's not a it's not a like a 10-degree angle, right? That's not what that is. It's a like 345-degree angle of change there, right? And so that's just a really sharp contrast to have of a change in one edge. And so I usually like to spread that sharp of an edge change unless you're intending it to be like razor sharp. I usually spread that over a larger area. And so one of the easiest ways to kind of address that is if you grab this and we just do edit mesh, insert edge loop. I'm just going to insert another one right there, and then maybe I'll soften some of this just a little bit like that, you know. And so that just, you know, over two edges now we make all the way around there. And so I that's just a preference. I don't, it's almost more like out of practice. I've seen a lot of bad results happen because of that sharp of an angle change. And if you do plan on smoothing it, you're going to be able to control the way that changes a little easier. If you're planning on smoothing it, this is really rounding up here, and I think there's some areas you can go in here because right now it's feeling a little harsh on some of these edges. So for me, I either like to, you know, take these harsher edges and get us like a bevel going on there, so it's not quite as harsh. You know, so maybe that mesh bevel, right, and maybe even with that bevel, you know, add an additional segment or two, right? And so now when I look at that, it's got a little bit more of a softer like change, and you know, it doesn't feel like this razor sharp thing that's going to cut you. And if you do decide to smooth it from there, you can sort of control how sharp this edge is as opposed to this, which gets really fluffy and rounded. So if you are deciding to keep it you know, unsmoothed, that's the way you can add that in there. But if you're deciding to smooth it, then the question becomes kind of still like, where do you want to add more edge loops to make it smooth the way you want to? So right now if we hit 3, it's really going to round this off, but if I insert another edge loop there and there, it's going to keep it a little sharper now, right? And so that's the way you can kind of go through here and decide how you're wanting to sharpen these areas up, and you can start getting a little bit more of a rounded shape. If like this feels a little bit more renderable, whereas this I can still feel the faces and the polygon edges, and so you have to do a little bit more work to make this feel like the natural object itself. So it's kind of up to you on how you plan on moving forward with that. But the tires are smoothing really well, so um, like that may just be a quick workaround for that. So, or not workaround, a quick method of how to get that in a nice renderable state. Courtney, again, I'm going to guess you're wanting me to do O2. So let's check it out. Give it a second to load up. There we go. Give it a second to. There we go. So, looking at this, all this is looking really good. I got some weirdness here. I'd maybe play with that and make that not quite so sharp because it's kind of pinching right there at that vertex. Come on. There you go. So just by doing that, now when we smooth it, it doesn't quite pinch as much, but I'm liking how that's looking. Not again, I'm not sure. Ooh. Okay. So that's got a nice effect to it. I feel like overall this is getting a little dense. Like you got a lot of edges in there, and none of them are really contributing too much to the shape of the form except for back here. And so like maybe more evenly distributing those, kind of having those go around the tire would be good. This one's an interesting one because I'm pretty sure it's not going to smooth very well. And so I think this is sort of based off of how you constructed this piece. And so if you're wanting it to stay rigid, that's one thing. But you know, sometimes the nice thing is we can get this cage going on and make some changes to it. So the reason that this is doing it the way it is, a couple things, is you got all these extra edges in here, or extra. See these vertices in here that aren't really connected to any edges. And so that happens when you just grab an edge and just hit delete. Right? It looks like we deleted it, but if we go in here, you see we got these like edges that are hanging out here that doesn't really seem to be connected to anything. And the same here, it's divided this edge or this face in half, right? And so that makes this face 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 5, yeah, 5 polygons. Is that right? Yeah, five-sided, right? And then we got this other thing going on in here, which appears to be, yeah, it just needs some cleanup to be an efficient model. Now you're getting the right form. That's cool. I think it's the flow and function part now that needs a little bit of work to clean this up. So the way of doing that is kind of varied. And it looks like you actually have this originally as like 2 pieces, and then you've welded this together, but then it's like, how do you put all that back together? And so you just kind of overlapped it. And so instead, I think you actually have to go in here and insert the edge loops to make all of these edges connect together and flow the way you want to. My main instinct would be to say I think you just probably modeled it in a less than efficient way. You maybe started with a cylinder from the side, and that's why you end up with all these extra points that are kind of radiating outward as we go around. So that's something that I would definitely be working on. I like the steering wheel. I like what you have going on in here. That's looking pretty good. And I like the seat, actually. I think the seat turned out really good, and this seat's probably a little denser than it needs to be under here, like around the side. More denser. But overall, like it's and your wheels are looking pretty good too. If we smooth those will do some neat stuff too. So I don't know if you're wanting to smooth them or not, but so you're getting a lot of good results. But this is the biggest area. Like these 2 pieces here, the ones that I would say maybe consider how you want to clean those up, or how you want to make this more efficient. And definitely this one particularly is the sort of the part that's, it's kind of like it's made up out of three pieces that are just kind of put together so they all match, and that we can clean that up, and it's not, I mean, it'll be a little bit of work, but it won't be a terrible amount of work. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the video here. Got us about halfway through it, but I'm actually going to have to head out to go pick up my wife. So right now we're at Courtney, so I got the second half of class to go here, and I'll get those in just a little bit when I get back. So let me know if you have any questions, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.